First of all, I'd like to thank you all for giving precious time to being here. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to share my experiences. My card boldly states, alcoholism is a family disease, not a disgrace, declared by the World Health Organization in 1956. This is the best thing I've done, as it's effortless education. Repeatedly, I notice people reading like this. Wherever I go, and I always try to park where it'll be most noticed by the public. One driver followed me for 4 miles, and when I stopped, he asked me for help. I gave him a symptom chart, and later, by chance, I sat next to his wife at an AA convention. This act contributed to her recovery. It's brought an occasional inquiry, shared interest, and commendation from 2 AA people. You may be intrigued to wonder why I'm wearing this hard hat. It's become my trademark for my marketing or education activities. You'll discover why as my story unfolds. I've divided this into 6 sections. A love affair with alcohol, turning point, family recovery, vision, family treatment center, focus on forgotten families, charitable aim and treatment fund. A love affair with alcohol. David's drinking began in his teen years. To him, it was the elixir of life. He handled glasses and bottles in a caressing way. Later, he began to hide his resources. It escalated from our first child's birth, when I felt like a single parent due to his workaholism and alcoholism. There were good times. Over time, it dominated life, eventually daily, and was especially difficult at weekends. He developed a Jekyll and Hyde character, Jack the lad outside the home, Hitler within. Mine changed imperceptibly. I became watchful and wary with his obsession, irritable, sarcastic, brusque and tearful. I shouted like a fishwife, experienced sleeplessness, was nervous and agitated to a state of constant tremor, and I noticed I was becoming selfish and felt numb. I didn't like or recognize the person I'd become. We live through scary experiences, becoming traumatized, anxious, and fearful. I had a reality check when on top of my eldest daughter's Christmas wish list was a lock on her bedroom door. I arranged this for all of us. When David returned home and the dog slunk into the lounge with her tail between her legs, we scarpered off to our bedrooms as we knew we were in for a difficult evening. We used to joke about her needing Doganon. In my observation, I felt it was a disease. As once started, he couldn't stop. Eventually, the frequency of our children's absence at school on Monday mornings was noticeable after weekend bouts of drinking. There was an episode when we arranged for our second daughter to be met by her father at Winner's Station to attend a ballet exam. He wasn't there to meet her. When he arrived late, he was drunk. For her, as a young girl, this was very upsetting. More so when he returned to collect her, even worse for wear. She told me the return drive home was terrifying as she lay on the back seat sobbing. As a result, I banned him from driving our dependent children, as knowing of his illness, I felt responsible to keep them as safe as possible and reduce the risk of drunken driving calamities. There were many arguments over this. Crises became more frequent, sometimes leading to violence. With lies and deceit, trust becomes eroded. I took on more responsibilities. Stigma, shame, and embarrassment are experienced. Turning point. A series of crises over 3 months brought me to a point of utter despair. I felt as if I was in a dark and murky sea, floundering about, being drawn into the vortex of a whirlpool. I contacted our doctor, who disbelieved me, but gave me an AA number which I rang, and an Al-Anon member got in touch with me. The emphatic insistence of an enlightened psychiatrist directed me to an Al-Anon meeting without delay. This became my life-changing, saving grace. I was grateful to be supported by a friend and met an Al-Anon member to take me into the meeting. When I came into the room, I saw this card: "Alcoholism is a disease, not a disgrace." I was at last in an environment where people believed me. I could identify with others in the room and received an immense sense of relief from these experiences. It is an illness of isolation. When the problem can't be contained any longer, it takes an average of 5 years before someone seeks help. I found it isolating in experience before seeking help, also in reaching for help, as others didn't understand, and even in recovery, support is essential, as the public and most professionals simply don't have the knowledge and understanding of the illness and the need for family healing. The illness is fourfold, affecting us emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, and ultimately, financially. The Hazelden Clinic in Minnesota, USA, with their blessing to be used extensively, provided me with 2 symptom charts. You have the details to study and pass on the information to educate in the take-home packs. So this is the chart for the alcoholic with all the various symptoms, 4 stages. And this is the chart for the family. Family recovery. So began my journey into recovery, where I gained education and knowledge. We started simply by sharing a tally of smiles we'd received at supper time daily. At a Pangbourne AA meeting, I saw this slogan on the piano: "Gratitude changes the attitude." And I took this on board, and it remains with me today. I started to develop a positive attitude and continued with my personal growth to a point of assertiveness. At Broadway Lodge in Avon, where we went for family treatment, we saw the ramifications of alcoholism in yellow, purpley, emaciated people. At this point, I became teetotal. They recommended that I became assertive, as I had a history of being used and abused. I joined an Assertiveness for Women course, and over a 3-year period when the group decided to meet monthly, it became natural to me. I learnt about games people play, emotional blackmail, and the compassion trap, which was very valuable in relationships. I discovered, importantly, the 3 C's. I didn't cause it, couldn't control it, and couldn't cure it, although blame was always laid at my feet. Gently and subtly, I began to get an understanding of this extremely complicated and specialized disease through the Al-Anon family groups, the counterpart of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. Established in the USA over 70 years ago, 65 years in the UK, with a good track record and informative, sensitive, wise literature for recovery. I wrote to America to get The Booze Battle by Ruth Maxwell. It's the best book I've read, unfortunately out of print now, but can sometimes be purchased second-hand through Amazon. She gives an extremely helpful prescription for recovery. Stop doing that and start doing this. I saw films and read avidly to a point of saturation and exhaustion to gain knowledge. Realization dawned that I'd played a significant part in perpetuating the disease by what we term enabling, and needed to change my reactions to responses to lessen the impact and work effectively and constructively with the illness. Fortunately, I always held the disease concept in my mind. Examples of the changes I made are: I stopped buying booze and left the bottles to stockpile. I've stopped marking bottles and searching for hidden resources, unlike most others touched by the illness, I never discarded the drink as I realized this might be like red rag to a bull. I no longer reacted to the provocation of the quantity he drank in front of me. I stopped calling his office on a Monday morning and left him to tell his own lies or give excuses for absence. Whilst he held wads of cash unaccounted for, I held little in my purse as he pinched my housekeeping to pay for his train fares to work. He also pinched from our children's piggy banks, so we arranged post office accounts. I made boundaries so that I wouldn't talk late into the nights, for the experiences to be repeated over and over again due to blackouts. If he was drunk in the car on return journeys, I left him there. I no longer bundled him into bed. If you go to AA meetings, which is a valuable experience, you learn the thinking like, I made it again last night. But if he collapsed, in compassion, I put him in the recovery position and covered him with a blanket. I arranged babysitting, whether he was at home or not, as he couldn't be trusted to take due care of our children. I reported factually the events when the remorse came through, usually 3 to 4 days after a drinking bout, and refused to enter into argument, if necessary, removing or detaching myself from the scene. I took the focus off the drinker and concentrated on improving the quality of my own life. Gradually, I learnt the art of detachment with unconditional love. Interfering seriously with the quality of our lives, the children became grey and limp like rag dolls. On family intervention with a psychiatrist present, he regarded the very emotional experience as dramatised, concluding that it was only because I didn't love him enough that he had this problem. And despite family facilitation at every crisis point, he was unwilling to go into treatment and remained so until, sadly, his death on the 14th of July 2011. His death certificate recorded chronic alcoholic disease of the liver. Our son remarked that at 71 he had had a good life, and my rider to that was at the expense of others, such as the nature of the illness. In America, it's regarded as a brain disease which can be identified in a brain scan. Addicts have no real awareness of the effects upon those around them in the preoccupation. Only when the family becomes part of their inclusive recovery is it that some of the issues and experiences can be addressed and gradually healed. Most don't ever have this opportunity. Divorce was instigated by David. It became acrimonious and protracted with cruel behaviour. Costs rocketed for me to £93,000 and almost flushed us out of our family home, taking 12 years to reach settlement. Many times I represented myself in the High Court in London to survive. The psychiatrist commented that I was hanging in there with my eyebrows, and it felt like it. Although challenging and character-forming, it was traumatic and disturbing. I felt like a lioness with her pride of cubs, and it gave me the energy to protect my children with my utmost strength and fortitude. Besides continuing Al-Anon family groups, I had 11 years of psychiatric counselling, alongside 10 years of spiritual counselling, family treatment with our children 3 times at Broadway Lodge, which accelerated our recovery and gave depth to our understanding. There we were told that the addictive compulsion is stronger than death, and that 65% of the children become addicted. This alarmed me. 5 days family program at Cloud's House and 4 days at the Renewal Centre. Such is the profound effect. Our children attended Alateen for a while, which was also helpful. I've been extremely fortunate to have been guided and taught by experts in the field, giving me knowledge, enlightenment, enrichment, understanding, love, and compassion. It's been a privileged experience, and I'm eternally grateful. In her study of death and dying, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identifies 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, grief, acceptance. These also relate to addiction. I went through 17 years in and out of denial before reaching out for help. 3 years of anger, 18 months of bargaining with God, 6.5 years of grief, anguish, and depression, and finally reached a stage of acceptance with some relief. Families need specialized help, support, and healing in their own right. Dogged by denial, working effectively and constructively with addiction is a tough call. I had a curious, startling experience in the middle of the night when I felt directed to create a family healing centre for the forgotten families affected by a person's alcoholism. Planning permission was sought with support of 3 rehabilitation centres, social services, local health authority, psychiatrist, counsellor, and vicar. The experience was very empowering as I planned the project over a weekend. The first step was buying scaffolding at an auction amongst a gathering of jocular men who I sensed were bidding me up by their mirth, as the auctioneer kept saying, "To the lady here, to the lady here." I cleaned 18,000 bricks to reuse, boldly negotiated trade accounts, sought out oak and tiles to blend, instructed joiners, became self-builder, project manager and decorator, along with a myriad of other jobs, working with 1 bricklayer and 1 carpenter. So it began. Against the odds, in faith, I continued and was graced with bed and breakfast income for 4 years from my house, increasingly as each child left home for university, when there was miraculously just enough to pay the 2 trades each week. Court cases stopped progress for 2 years, and I arranged storage and decorated meantime, and awaited the opportunity to continue, which gratefully came. The Renewal Centre was opened on the 11th of July 1999. It was a sunny, magical day. 65 people happily attended. I like giving surprises, so I chose to give a trip on Concorde to the bricklayer, as I noticed he downed his tools and ruled each day as she flew over. To the carpenter, I gave a silver canteen of cutlery to remind him daily of his service to humanity. And 3, to the structural engineer, I gave a holiday in the hours of Scilly as he guided me every step of the way. I was blessed with good people. So this is me cleaning the piles of bricks. And this is the barn before it, in the process of it being made. Focus on forgotten families. The creative building experience has been hugely challenging, hard work, and largely enjoyable. I've been told it's a building of excellence and gained the commendation from Wokingham Council Conservation Architect. Don Lavender entered the scene. He regards the Renewal Centre as ideal for family treatment, with its privacy and intimacy. Originating in the USA with 35 years multi-addictions exceptional experience, he tells me that the UK is 15 years behind the USA. Workshops began in 2003. Presently, he's available for these monthly scheduled 3.5-day workshops over a long weekend as the needs arise. A minimum of 5 participants affected is needed for the dynamics to work, with 12 people a maximum, ideally including the addicted person so that communication is opened up. Although a few tears flowed, he made us laugh a lot. Courage is needed to take this worthwhile path. Built on a foundation of love, 15 years later, the conversion is complete, with ancillary accommodation for 8 people in Honeysuckle Barn next door, which is this little bit here. This is the entry to the Renewal Centre where we are now. That's the Gallery Eves Lounge upstairs. This is the lecture room in which we're having this talk. This is the group room, where Drug Fam meets on Monday evenings and Al-Anon family groups on Friday evenings. One needs to feel the ambience to appreciate its intrinsic value. Most people can't comment on its calm tranquility. I feel it's blessed with a special grace. Charitable Aim Treatment Fund. In Honeysuckle Barn, free weekends are available on a B&B basis, primarily for caregivers, for refuge, respite and recovery and readiness to become a charitable foundation. Bursary treatment funds are available to help those financially challenged for the 3.5-day workshops. This is one of the bedrooms, and this is the upstairs lounge. The World Health Organization European Charter in 1995 states all people with hazardous or harmful alcohol consumption and members of their families have the right to accessible treatment and care. This latter has been neglected in the UK. Presently, the profile is rising, and belief is coming forward for this need to be addressed for support and healing in the family's own right, whether the addicted person is in recovery or not. I'm glad that recognition is at last arising, as there's already an epidemic need. It's been for me an adventure of self-discovery and transformation, which has given me a good philosophy and a quality of life beyond my wildest dreams. My desire is that this available family treatment facility at the Renewal Centre be shared with others on a similar path of life's journey, nationally and globally, from which untold benefits are gained in accelerated recovery. To end, I'm going to quote from Ruth Maxwell's Booze Battle. Responding constructively to your partner's alcoholism and its destruction will require the greatest effort you have ever put into anything in your life. And it's a daily effort, not a one-shot deal. It can also bring you the greatest rewards you've ever known. Alcoholics can get weller than well, and so can their spouses. You can come to act in ways you've never acted. You can come to feel in ways you've never felt. You can become beautiful and free. This has happened to me and is depicted in the logo for the Renewal Centre as the butterfly is fluttering off the honeysuckle. With this pioneering vision, it's my life's purpose and my passion. I just want to add some facts. 3.3 million are recorded as dying of alcoholism per annum. And when you think of the effects, there will be millions more needing their own healing. 1 in 4 epidemics since the 80s have an alcohol-related problem. 1 in 5 children live with a problem drinker. And recently I read that 93,000 babies are affected by a problem drinker. That was Alcohol Concern Report in 2016. So my hopes. I feel honoured to have been asked to be part of the all-party parliamentary group for children of alcoholics, led by MP Liam Byrne, addressing the issue that 1 in 5 children live with a problem drinker. I'm hoping this will be groundbreaking in the UK. A manifesto for change was launched in February 2017 for this purpose.